Hey everyone, this is Shpan, and today we'll be going over my entire 2025 mod list. We'll be covering every single mod in my mod list in no particular order, but not to the same degree as my usual mod showcase videos. For the mods on this list that I've already done a proper showcase for on my channel, we'll still show them in this video as well, but definitely feel free to check some of those out if you're interested. This is going to be a long one, we got a lot of mods to go through, so grab a snack and a drink, and I hope you'll find a few new mods that inspire you for your next playthrough. But before we get started, if you enjoy Daggerfall content like this, please consider subscribing to my channel or to my Patreon through the link in the video description below. And without further delay, let's get into my 2025 mod list. In no particular order, the very first one on the list is Harvestable Crops. This is a pretty cool one. It allows you to loot crops out in the wilderness or from farms. In the mod settings, you can decide whether or not your ability to harvest crops is affected by skill. There's a couple other nice customizable options included, like changing whether or not you need permission to harvest crops owned by other farmers, or how many days it takes for the crops to grow back. Regions under winter weather seem not to grow any crops at all, which is another nice immersive inclusion. The mod also has a Daggerfall expanded textures compatible version, which is another great addition. Adding a mod like this to your playthrough can have some other interesting implications that you might not immediately think of, like providing a new way for alchemy fans to acquire ingredients for their potion making. So I definitely recommend this one if you have any interest in making a character that utilizes alchemy and potion making. Handheld Torches is the type of mod that's really going to speak to the type of player that enjoys survival-like mechanics, as it provides more restrictive but also potentially more immersive control over your light sources. Handheld Torches requires the player to have a free hand to hold a torch or another light source. Not having one will allow you to place a light source on the ground for as long as you like, but it'll still extinguish in the same time as if you were holding it. The mod also lets you place multiple light sources on the ground, so you can create a really bright environment if you need to. You'll also be given the options of a keybind to throw a torch, complete with customizable angles and gravity strength, stowing a torch or other light source when climbing, spellcasting, or swimming, keybind for manual drops or toggling your light input, player torch audio, which I personally decided to play without because it gets a little bit too grating for me after using a torch for a long period of time. But yeah, the amount of customizability in this mod is super impressive, so definitely try it out and play with the settings to create the experience you want for your playthrough. This mod has a ton of functionality and is highly customizable, so if you don't love a certain aspect of the mod, you can make tons of adjustments or even remove certain aspects of it entirely. Orsinium belongs to the Orcs, and don't forget it. I'm not sure how the original Daggerfall team missed this, but in vanilla Daggerfall, Orsinium is completely occupied by non-Orc races. It's crazy. This mod fixes that oversight by making the people that populate the area Orcs. Orsinium is actually one of the areas that's relevant to the main questline, so this mod would also fit well for a playthrough that is trying to do the main quest. But for me, it's just great to have the region populated by Orcs. Bringing region-specific variety into areas where it makes sense is one of my favorite kinds of Daggerfall mods. Beautiful Villages of Daggerfall is a mod that I wish I had gotten earlier. In my earlier Daggerfall Unity days, I did see this one, and I did consider it back then, but at the time I passed on it and I wish I hadn't. It's such a nice mod, overhauling all sorts of cities and towns throughout the Iliac Bay, and even touches up a ton of interiors in these towns. Check out this clothing store and its interior design. It's organized in such a convincing way, it feels like walking into a proper store, designed by someone that understands how to sell merchandise. And over here, you'll even see a changing room divider. This mod is filled with hundreds of details, and if I had a Daggerfall Mod Hall of Fame, it would be an inductee for sure. There are too many additions to include everything in this video, but I've been looking at this mod as a candidate for a full mod showcase video on my channel sometime in the future, so potentially look forward to that. If you know me, you know I love Language Skills Overhaul. It's a personal favorite of mine. I love Daggerfall's language skills. It's something I wish more games would take inspiration from. Language Skills Overhaul allows for manual attempts to pacify an enemy depending on your skill in the language group that the enemy belongs to. And it also adds a few new language skills to the game, like Necromancy, Animal Taming, and Sylvan Tongue. On default settings, you're given 3 attempts to pacify an enemy using your appropriate language skill, and upon successfully pacifying them, you can try to make further use of your language skill by attempting a number of different conversation checks, like bartering or convincing them to join your party. It's just so much fun. It never gets old for me, and almost every character I play, I put a language skill in the primary or major skill slot. The mod is also very customizable with options to change the number of pacify attempts you're allowed, to giving you the ability to pacify guards with your etiquette skill, and even some fun immersive options like requiring a sheathed weapon to attempt pacification on enemies, or even making followers converted from necromancy illegal to bring into towns. I know to some people this might not sound like the most exciting mod, but I promise you, if you try it out for yourself, you'll be wondering why every RPG doesn't provide a similar concept. I've always been a big fan of Uncanny UI. I love how the mod author redesigned the inventory management and resting interface. One suggestion I would give to anyone using this mod is to change the default portrait settings from no portraits to any other portrait option. Being able to see the portraits of the NPCs you're talking to is great, and I don't like losing that during my conversations in Daggerfall. With that small change from the default settings, it's my favorite UI redesigned mod. Guaranteed ingredient loot drops make monsters consistently drop loot that is relevant to them. For example, an orc will drop orc's blood and a giant scorpion will drop its stinger. Not only is this immersive and make a lot of sense, but it has some nice practical use as well in a playthrough. An alchemist can now target farm specific ingredients for their potions. If a potion maker needs wraith essence for a specific recipe, now they can travel to crypts and graveyards and be guaranteed to find that ingredient when killing the appropriate enemies. Airships is a mod that adds airships throughout the Iliac Bay. I did a full video showcase for this mod in the past, so feel free to check out that video if you're interested in this one. This mod lets the player buy a charter to travel the map on an airship, or to buy their own airship. It's a really fun and relaxing way to travel, as you'll move in real time and be able to see all sorts of cities and locations from a bird's eye view. There's a surprisingly large amount of customizability with this mod. In the settings, you can change the cost of any version of the airships, the charter cost, the amount of cargo your ships will have, and whether or not there is air traffic. I will say, even with air traffic, I rarely saw other airships, which I think is a good thing as Daggerfall's world is massive and I wouldn't want it to be too populated with airships flying around constantly. And finally, there's also a dream compatibility option in the settings, which is a nice addition for those that play with that visual overhaul. I sometimes deactivate this mod for some playthroughs, but it still stays in my mod list because every now and then it's just really relaxing and nice to travel in the skies. The original Daggerfall questlog is pretty lacking, and so the mod ConvenientQuestLog is a great addition for any playthrough. The mod organizes and separates mods into categories and even displays the amount of time remaining to complete a quest. Windmills of Daggerfall is a surprisingly nice addition to the world. I waited on installing this mod for a bit because I figured, how much could windmills really enhance my playthrough? And it turns out a decent amount actually. I think part of why it's so nice is that they bring a lot of verticality to smaller towns, and because they're animated, and you can see the windmill moving in real time, it also adds a visually pleasing aesthetic to these locations. You can also check out the interiors of these, which are also extremely well done. Overall, it's a deceivingly impactful mod. Vampiric Options is a great addition for fans of vampire character playthroughs. It provides both cosmetic and gameplay options for vampire characters, including a new portrait that keeps a clean face for your characters. In the mod settings, you can adjust how severe your bloodlust anxiety is and how many days required before you reach bloodlust. Being able to tailor your vampire playthrough in this way allows you to control how punishing the vampire experience is for your character. Quest Actions Extension is another one of the mod resources that are required for many other great mods to function correctly. It adds new quest actions and conditions, which allows other mod authors to develop more complex and interesting quest designs. This one will be a requirement for pretty much any custom quest mod. BasicRoads is a mod that adds a bunch of roads to the world map, and in combination with the travel options mod, we're able to travel along these roads in a sped up, real-time fashion. This mod is simple, but adds a nice bit of immersion and also convenience, as traveling on roads sometimes prevents the dreaded falling through the ground bug we see with travel options. It's simple, but being able to plan your travel through following roads on the world map adds a nice bit of immersion and fun to your playthrough. Anyone that's seen my Let's Play Daggerfall videos knows I'm a big fan of martial builds, and Shield Widget really helps create a visual distinction between martial builds with a shield and ones without. The mod adds a shield to your first person view and also includes a lot of customizability. The mod settings let you change the scale of the shield and offset its placement on the screen. You can change recoil options or inertia and plenty of other small details as well. Diverse Weapons provides new weapon sprites in the first-person view for tons of different weapons. In vanilla Daggerfall, every single weapon of a certain type looks nearly identical. There might be some coloring differences, but in general, a steel longblade will look the same as a Daedric longblade. This mod changes that by creating new weapon sprites for each of the different materials. Now you can see some really stylish and awesome new designs when you find an upgrade. This applies to other weapon types as well, of course, so this mod adds a ton of weapon design variety to your playthrough. Next mod on the list is called Fixed Desert Architecture. This one changes the rooftops of buildings in the desert regions and towns. It creates a more realistic and immersive building design when considering the type of climate the buildings in these areas have. This is a small mod, but it does help to bring some nice variety into the different regions, which to me is more important than whether or not this mod is actually realistic. I always like having distinct characteristics in each region, differences that help to make them feel like individual cultures with different ways of doing things, even if it's as simple as how they construct their buildings. And any mod that adds regional variety like that gets a spot on my mod list. I'm the type of player that enjoys visual feedback when playing my games, and Readied Spellcasting Hands provides a visual indicator in the form of the character's hands on screen when a spell is readied. It seems like a small thing, but having that visual feedback after readying a spell really enhances the satisfaction of casting spells in Daggerfall for me. Drafty Secret Doors makes secret doors emit a windy sound. Let's listen to this. This is a nice compromise on providing a hint that a secret door is nearby without completely revealing it to the player. In vanilla Daggerfall, finding a secret door can be surprisingly difficult, and for a few instances, even in the main quest, finding the secret door in a gigantic dungeon is sometimes necessary to progress. Having that windy sound is a nice little role-playing friendly way of helping us find those secret passages. Landlord mods lets you rent out property that you've purchased. This is done through the bank, and it's geared more towards endgame as it's a massive investment and it'll take a lot of in-game months or even years to start seeing a profit. I recommend this mod for playthroughs that you intend to make very, very long. A role-playing concept where you plan to spend maybe 10 plus years accomplishing some feat in the Iliac Bay. I think it would complement a playthrough like that very well. It's a simple little addition to the game, but adding a few more interesting ways to generate income and breathe life into the cities is a welcomed addition. Simply put, Flat Replacer is more of a mod resource, so it's a framework for replacing building interior flats. This one is a requirement for other mods on my mod list. Daggerfall Enemy Expansion is another super popular and excellent mod. It adds a huge amount of new enemy varieties to the game, including some from the first Elder Scrolls title, Arena. The sheer amount of variety and interesting new enemy designs added from this mod is seriously impressive. From new horseback enemies to will-o-wisps, this mod provides all sorts of new encounters to deal with. With this mod activated, you don't suffer from running into the same enemies that you see so often in vanilla Daggerfall. And it's also an important mod for a lot of other mods, so this one should very likely receive a spot in your mod list. Third-person camera is how I often shoot the beginning of many of my videos. It allows the player to see themselves in third person and creates a set distance camera that you can rotate to your liking. With this mod, you can take selfies, see how your character looks in the world, and for content creators, create the feeling that you're speaking to your audience when recording. Paints and dyes allows the player to recolor their armor and clothing. Being able to create the color palette you want for a specific look is a lot of fun and can help you capture the role-playing fantasy for a character. There are a couple of limitations currently, like not being able to change the color of your weapons, but these are honestly very minor setbacks, and having so many different color options for both armor and clothes is a lot of fun to play around with. Finding My Religion is a Temples Overhaul mod. It adds a ton of nice detail to all major religions of the Iliac Bay. All sorts of additions like more books, shelves with trinkets, boxes for storage, temples cluttered with cups and cutlery, all help with the interiors of these temples feeling so much more lived in. You'll see this level of detail added to each section of the temples, from the main prayer spaces to the dormitories and even to the burial spaces underneath some temples. This mod gets a huge recommendation from me for anyone role-playing a character that plans to join a temple faction. I did a full video showcase for this mod, so feel free to check that out if you're interested in seeing more on this. Sit and Loiter is a simple mod that lets the player sit on furniture. Pretty much anything that you think could reasonably be considered a seat is possible to sit on. All you have to do is click on the piece of furniture and your character will sit on it. There are some interesting settings options included with this mod, like the option to add a fatigue recovery rate when sitting. I like these types of mods that add simple actions that allow us to take a break from the action in an immersive way. Shield Armor Improved is another potentially controversial mod, as it undoubtedly makes the game a little bit easier by scaling the armor rating of shields based on the material that they're made from. So, normally for shields, we have bucklers being the weakest, then round, then kite, and finally tower being the strongest. Now each type of shield will have a higher armor rating depending on the material. So for example, a dwarven or mithril buckler will have more armor rating than a leather or chain tower shield. Personally, I don't care much about balance in my sandbox RPGs, and one thing I like a lot about this mod is that a build that might focus on agility or speed, that wants to use a buckler for class fantasy, like let's say a duelist for example, now has a variety of different bucklers with different power levels. You can find upgrades for your shields and you'll be a little bit more powerful throughout the playthrough. It also prevents every class that wants to use a shield from feeling like they just have to default to using a tower shield. It will make you a lot tankier, but it's also a lot of fun, especially if you want to make a shield wearing class but the tower shield doesn't fit that class fantasy you're role playing as. Paperdoll Overhaul is a mod that simply fixes the colors for the vanilla Daggerfall paper doll. In the original game, there was a slight difference in color between the head and the body of the paper dolls. This mod fixes that by matching those colors and creating a nice, clean, uniform color palette for our character's skin. Daggerfall Expanded Textures is really a resource mod for other modders, as it provides a huge amount of additional textures to be used in the creation of various new objects. This mod adds so much value to Daggerfall and has allowed a lot of other Daggerfall mods to accomplish their goals and provide more variety to the world of Daggerfall. For many of the mods on my list, Daggerfall Expanded Textures is a requirement, so it's an important one. RandomStartingDungeon does exactly what it sounds like it does. Instead of starting in Privateer's Bay, you'll be placed into a random dungeon in the world. One really cool aspect of this mod is that each time you start a new character, you'll be given the option to start in a random dungeon or start in Privateer's Dungeon like the vanilla experience. Providing the player this option in the beginning means you don't need to enable or disable the mod every time you want to swap between starting in Privateer's Hold or in a random dungeon. After experiencing Privateer's Hold so many times, it's nice to have the option of starting somewhere random. It also adds a new level of difficulty to the beginning of the game, as the dungeon you come out of might not be close to a major city. RandomStartingDungeon provides a lot of excitement to the start of any playthrough. Dungeon Loot is another small but nice addition to dungeon interiors in Daggerfall. You'll often notice when dungeon delving that there might be a weapon rack, container, or a bookcase that is purely cosmetic, even though the same looking weapon rack displays purchasable items in a shop. This mod fixes that by making those containers and dungeons lootable. I'm going to include all of the vanilla enhanced mods together in this section here. So that includes the base mod, masked roads, snowless swamps, animated people, villages, and villains and monsters. Vanilla enhanced remasters the vanilla textures of Daggerfall, and this is my choice for a visual overhaul. You might have noticed that I'm not using the popular Dream mod as a visual overhaul, but for me, I really like the original Daggerfall art style, and Vanilla Enhanced is the best way to keep that original style intact, but improve it slightly. For those like me that enjoy the vanilla art style and don't want a massive visual overhaul, I think Vanilla Enhanced is the best option for you. The Village of Fishguard is another mod that I've done a full video showcase on, and for good reason. This is such a beautiful, cozy, handcrafted village situated in Bettany. It's filled with a lot of tiny details, and the interior buildings like the shop, inn, and homes are filled with the same level of detail. But it's not just a fun place to look at, it also includes a full dungeon underneath the village that tells a little bit of the story about this place. Overall, this mod is everything you can want from a custom-made village in Daggerfall. Lives of Raiders Banditry Events is another mod that I did a complete showcase video on, so feel free to check that out if this interests you. This mod is seriously a ton of fun. It adds random events to farms, including bandit raids, attacks from giants, or even from orcs. It adds something to Daggerfall that is sorely missing in the original game: large-scale battles in open wilderness. Traveling the world map and coming across a farm and then fighting alongside the defending knights or the raiding bandits is the type of classic fun we love to see in our fantasy role-playing games. Despite having a ton of allies and enemies fighting on screen, it runs extremely smoothly, so this mod really succeeds in what it's trying to do, and I highly recommend it. I did a full mod showcase video of this on my channel because it's a really great mod for those that like to personalize their living spaces and their ships. This mod is full of awesome features like adding storage compartments, light sources, wall and floor decorations like banners or rugs, and a huge list of miscellaneous fun items like globes, musical instruments, and countless others. This mod lets you hang items from the ceiling, or against the wall, or even on top of other items. You can add furniture to your room, or create a torture dungeon space. There are a ton of options available to you. If you want to see more on this mod, feel free to check out my mod showcase video covering it. Unleveled Loot might be a little controversial depending on how much you like loot table tailored to your current power level. For me, I like the excitement of knowing there's a more realistic chance of acquiring a powerful upgrade. This mod also adjusts the loot tables in shops, so higher quality shops will sell high quality equipment and weapons. And fortunately, the mod does a really good job at balancing the price of stronger items. Seat of the Direnni is a Direnni Tower location overhaul mod. It completely redesigns the exterior of the tower in a lore-friendly way. It massively increases the height of the tower to fit its legendary status, and adds a ruined courtyard with some surrounding buildings and miscellaneous town objects. This mod breathes a lot of life into this location, and I really like how the mod author decided to also reshape a lot of the topography that surrounds the tower. This location is obviously very relevant to Daggerfall's main quest, and so it's an overhaul mod that you don't need to go out of your way to see, and you'll go to it a few times in your playthrough if you're doing the main quest. It looks great and captures the history of the location as well. RMB Resource Pack is another resource mod for modders, and it contains a bunch of new 3D models for terrains and even NPC flats. Most mods that change the landscape, like adding verticality from hills and rocks, or mods that include town assets like bridges and docks and even new buildings, often make use of this awesome mod. You'll find this as a requirement for many other mods that you might wish to install. Eye of the Beholder is another mod that I did a full video showcase on. This mod allows you to control your character completely in third person. This is of course a really ambitious mod, and it's had a fair amount of updates and improvements since its release. I tried it out for myself of course, and it plays surprisingly well. It does take some time to get used to, and requires some adjustments in the settings to get your preferred setup, but it works well and is a lot of fun to play around with. This mod isn't actually enabled for any of my playthroughs at the moment, but I have used it in the past for fun, and so it stays in my mod list, as I will undoubtedly return to it in the future to check out any updates by the mod author. Roleplay and Realism is an interesting one for me because I only use the Roleplay and Realism items mod, not the main mod. Roleplay and Realism changes a lot of different mechanics in Daggerfall, and for me it does a little bit too much, so I choose to only use the items version of the mod. This part of the mod adds so many great ideas like skill-based starting equipment. So for example, if you build a character with blunt skill in your primary slot, you'll start the game with a blunt weapon in your inventory. Other additions like weapon balancing, condition-based pricing for equipment in shops, New light and medium armor sets, and a few completely new weapons like the Archer's Axe and Light Flail are included in this mod. The mod does even more than what I've mentioned, so definitely check out the full details on the Nexus mod page if you're interested in this one. Next up, we have an absolutely legendary mod that does not need any introduction for Daggerfall fans. If this is not already in your mod list, then I don't know what you're doing. It's called Travel Options. I covered this one in depth in my The Single Most Important Daggerfall mod video, so you can already guess how I feel about this one. To sum it up, it lets you travel the massive Daggerfall world in real time. You absolutely need this mod. I'm going to be including both Warm Ashes mods in this section here. Warm Ash Wilderness and Warm Ashes Ships are two awesome mods that bring wilderness encounters when traveling the map and ship encounters when fast traveling by ship into Daggerfall. This mod is really exactly what you need to bring the wilderness in Daggerfall to life, and it pairs so nicely with travel options. This is another one of those mods that I can't imagine skipping, as it fits into any playthrough and is a big part of what makes traveling the world map exciting and fun. Whew, that'll do it. My entire 2025 mod list showcase for you guys. This was honestly a lot more work than I was anticipating, but I'm happy to have completed it. And when 2026 comes around, we'll have to revisit this idea and make another video showcasing all the ones I've added throughout the year. This was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. And it's also my way of showing my appreciation to all the amazing mod authors out there that put a ton of work into the mods for the entire Daggerfall Unity community to enjoy. I hope a lot of you guys were able to find a few new mods to add to your mod list. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.